Let me clear my throat. Kick it over here, baby pop, and let all the fly skinnies feel the podcast drop. You are now going off with RC and Muse. Muse, how you doing?
Man, I'm in the middle of carrying a League of Legends game, about to close it out, and my braless wife brings me a sandwich not asked for with chips, and I get a double kill bot lane. So how is your day going?
As you sip your gif of Leonardo DiCaprio or whoever the fuck it was sipping tea on Entourage or whatever the fuck it was. with his pussy posse. Is that the smooth way that the milk is going down?
Yeah.
So, what the fuck? Okay, I'm pretty sure I know who Ninja is, but I don't know who the fuck Ninja is.
He's a Twitch streamer.
Oh, okay. So I think I know it. It's like PewDiePie, but not PewDiePie. Like that's basically it.
I don't want to bring everybody inside the bit too much here.
As you struggle for life
but,
on this podcast.
I was gonna cut it out, but fuck it. As you were, referencing or describing that GIF, I leaned in super close to the microphone, and I tried to take a sip of water out of my water bottle, but, in a way that would perhaps make a kind of, slurping kind of noise. Oh, and it just went down the wrong pipe, 100%.
This opening skit
it goes on and on and on and on, and you don't stop.
The beat don't stop until the break of dawn. Yes, y'all, until the beat, y'all. And you go on till it's Brooklyn dawn, to the AM.
Till it's PM dawn. Y'all. Huh? What?
Oh man, so many early 90s hip-hop catchphrases to get through.
Without any further ado, I gotta pass the mic to Dr. Goatman, who put in the request for Check Your Head by the Beastie Boys 1992. This, in a way, is the bridge between what License to Ill / Paul's Boutique was and what Ill Communication would be. And for those who listen to that review or are just familiar with the album in general, you'll remember that there are a couple tracks on there where the boys provide their own instrumentation, and it's half a rap album, half kind of funky jazzy instrumentals. You get the first taste of that here on Check Your Head. RC, I just want to pass the mic to you. Get your feeling on this one first, because I feel like I might be more familiar with this album overall.
Yeah.
Because I've heard this numerous times before. I want to get your take.
Yeah, and Beastie Boys to me is kind of I have fun with them when I hear the singles, but I've never been an album listening guy beyond the first album because of, my mom used to have, what was that one song? She's crafty.
Oh.
So that was my first big, first introduction to Beastie Boys before I even knew who they were.
When they were still in their super nasal, kind of more of a novelty act kind of phase.
Right. But you know what? I enjoy it. You know what I'm saying? I have fun with the way they play with Led Zeppelin samples and shit, early on. You know what I'm saying? It's such a unique, fun, just style that they use. And of course, when they're in unison and how they switch up flows and do the, rap along with each other and stuff.
An album you could not make today, by the way, and not in a...
Oh, definitely not.
You wouldn't be able to make Blazing Saddles today,
right?
Kind of way. Not S Club 71 or whatever the fuck. I'm not talking about that. I mean, the licensing of those samples would be astronomical.
and not be worth making.
And the way the Beastie Boys were able to get License to Ill, which basically had Led Zeppelin samples on almost every cut, and then the follow-up album was just as bad, and even had like a song that was full of Beatles samples. It was the Indiana Jones slide out, grab the hat, cause that shit is done. End of an era. We're not getting away with that shit anymore.
Yeah, ever since Biz Markie, I just want to know, a black man, sampled, Just a Friend. And it wasn't even Just a Friend, it was a song after that where he did, Alone Again, the sample of the old Grady, piano player, Peter O'Sullivan, or I know his name sounds like, Gilbert and Sullivan.
It's Gilbert O'Sullivan, yeah.
Are you fucking serious?
Yeah.
Is it the name of the old, like, those two guys, Gilbert and Sullivan? How do I keep... That is so weird.
How do you just step into that? Yeah.
Yeah, because my brain goes like, it can't be that, because that's what I'm thinking when it comes to those two guys. But then it's like, nope, it is. It's just you replace and with O. Like, goddamn it.
I think it's like when we talked about Vanilla Ice, in our Hard to Swallow review, we talked a little bit about, the controversy around, sampling Under Pressure for Ice Ice Baby. And how that was a big thing. Vanilla Ice, who, I mean, has only over time let everyone know exactly how big of a piece of shit he truly is. But in the early 90s, it was a bit more, I don't know, he's corny, whatever. He would be the first to explain to you, because I saw a clip of it and he explained it in the interview, that Queen or whoever was representing Queen and David Bowie didn't sue Vanilla Ice until the song was either like platinum or sold a million copies or more than that. So Vanilla Ice was under the impression that it would have been okay, but now that it's making a lot of money, people are coming around looking for their cut. I think that's what Gilbert O'Sullivan was thinking also, that he probably would have been fine with that, but as soon as he saw how big Just a Friend was...
Right, he's like, this might be a big hit too.
Biz is getting paid, he can part with some of that, I think.
But then it wasn't a hit, so it just kind of made him look like a big jerk. You know, relatively, it's just like, oh, come on, man. We know he's a one-hit wonder at this point, you know?
Gilbert O'Sullivan probably got all the fucking money that song made.
But going back to Beastie Boys, is like, Intergalactic is a classic to me, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just love their style, but always when you listen to them, it's like, there's not a lot that's too deep going on here.
Absolutely, yes.
It really does sound like nods, like, their style is interesting, definitely, and it's like, it's so unique in how, like, yeah, they have the shouting thing in a way that's, like, so unique to them. To what service it gets used to is so, like, underwhelming ultimately if you pay attention, and so it's like it's so high energy compared to like what they're actually saying, right? And like and how the production is, like the production is just like moving and shaking. And also I noticed, like, you know, I remember Beastie Boys always being one of those groups that, like, you know, hip hop heads didn't really like that much, but like rock heads really liked. And I remember being like, you know, okay, maybe it's just like, you know, the white guys, like, put it down, whatever, and, you know, lyrically they're not as good, but, like, hey, they're cool white guys, so, you know, you're able to, like, overlook it. But then I was thinking, like, how much of their discography is just, like, instrumental music stuff? And there feels like an edge of rock criticism where it's like, well, this is a legitimate rap group because they play instruments. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm just
I never got that impression, because I don't think rock people really fuck with their instrumentals like that.
I don't think it's like rock critics, but I mean like people growing up at the time.
Oh,
that
okay.
Would be like the 16 to 17-year-olds who are like, I don't want to listen to rap, but Beastie Boys are cool because they play instruments, you know?
Gotcha.
Like that sort of criticism, you know what I mean? Especially on this album, it's like, these instruments are good, but they're not like, oh my god, you gotta listen to this one as opposed to that one, because they all just sound like kind of generic, funky tracks that would be like the background, you know, of if there was a Beastie Boys movie and they actually did like the Sabotage video, like for real.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, these sound like the songs that would play in the background and that would be chill, but I have to listen to a whole album where it's just, oh, there's just 3 minutes where it's just you guys playing this for a while? Okay. And there's like 1 or 2 times where they like switch it up and like slow it down and do something cool like that. But for the most part, it's just kind of like, I get it. You're a rap group that plays instruments, but what does it really matter that these tracks are happening at certain points? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
I
that
get you.
especially hit me with this album. And like, I may have kind of felt that way for the other album, but I felt that way less so because I feel like the tracks were a lot more individualistically, like they popped more. You know what I'm saying? And with this, it just kind of feels like I'm supposed to just be appreciating the fact that the rap group that you know is playing instruments.
Yeah, I mean, especially because in 92, like, if people weren't familiar with them as a punk group before, this was probably it was probably more of a shock to them. Like, I'm sure this was all over MTV News. Like, oh man, the fucking immature, like, sophomoric rappers you knew, you know, taking a serious edge with this mature instrumental music.
For the average hip-hop album where it's like, oh yeah, it's a hip-hop album where they're rapping, but then there's a little instrumental track by the DJ, right? It's like something to that effect.
I think this is my least favorite of that era. License to Ill, Paul's Boutique, Ill Communication, and Check Your Head. Check Your Head is definitely my least favorite, or at least the one that I revisit the least. And if I'm listening to this album beginning to end, I'm skipping a good bit. And I'm just gonna cut to the chase here. Favorite cuts, and we'll get back to them, but I gotta say my favorite cuts are mostly, actually, yeah, they're the singles. Are Pass the Mic, Gratitude, So What You Want, and I also gotta throw some love over to Finger Lickin' Good, Time for Living, the punk cut, and Pow, one of the better instrumental cuts. But as far as tracks I'm skipping, I almost always skip, well, I mean, some go without saying, like Biz Markie just screaming about the Beastie Boys for about half a minute.
Like, that was the one where it was like, you know, the way he was singing along so, like, perfectly timed through the guitar, I thought something was gonna happen, and I was like, oh shit, and it was like, alright, anyway.
I do love its placement, that it's right after So What You Want, which is, like, the big promotional single, and it's right before, like, I think it's the first time the Beastie Boys play a punk song on a full-length rap album, Time for Living. It's the last thing you would expect after Biz Markie is the thing.
Well, it's like, it's one of those things that's like, it's a fun, accepted energy, like, I want it, but it feels like it's just not polished right, and it feels like they're just allowed to just kinda do whatever, and it's just kinda leading to just this big place where I'm like, okay, this is cool, but like, seriously, what are you guys saying? Because, like, every now and then it'll sound like something is uplifting that's happening, but, like, compared to what's happening around the rest of the verse, it just feels like a muddled thing in general. Like, perfect example, What You Want, you know, one of the highlight of the tracks, right? You know, he says this one lyric was like, I said, where'd you get your information from? You think that you get from when revelation comes? And you're like, whoa, you hear that track, like, whoa, what the fuck? And you know, you hear like, yeah, you can't front on that with the guitar. I'm like, yo, alright, this Beast Boys got to get like fucking intense, what the fuck's going on? But not really. That doesn't really, it wasn't even really related to what was happening before, and it doesn't really come back again. And in fact, the reusage of the, yeah, you can't front on that actually like cheapens the more they keep using it, you know what I mean? Like, it's like one of those things where just like, I'm trying to just enjoy it on the sonic level that you're supposed to enjoy music like this, right? Because like when you listen to Beastie Boys, like some of these tracks, just through the way they're mixed, you can tell like I'm not supposed to be paying too close attention to what you're saying, because like the way, you know, his voice is put in the mix and the way they mess with it and stuff like that and mix it, you know what I mean? Like it kind of feels like, no, you're supposed to just be rocking with this whole package. You know, I can enjoy that on the Ghostface Killer, you know, abstract whatever level, but when some of these tracks don't have that rocking energy and mixing in it, which is a lot of these tracks, I kind of fall out of it, you know what I mean? Like What You Want, I realize I'm able to rock with because everything else is popping so big, the drums are so like big and distorted that like I have no choice but to rock along with it. But as soon as you're out of those tracks, like with a track like Live at the Barbecue or whatever, where it's just them kind of going, and I'm just like, it just feels so aimless and just immediately falls apart. You're just like, what is going on? What are you saying?
Again, another reason why this is my one of my least favorites is because, yeah, a lot of these tracks are a lot better enjoyed if you do just tune out the lyrics or at least not pay attention to what they're actually saying. Just talking about how these albums start, compared to Ill Communication. Ill Communication starts out with one of my favorite Beastie Boys cuts, Sure Shot. And then, as we talked about in that review, the fucking breakneck transition into Tough Guy. This fucking fast, in-your-face punk cut. This album starts with Jimmy James, which I'm not sure how this was a single, because it's barely a song. And it starts with, like, this Beach Boys sample of them saying, this next one is the first song off our new album. And it works in that way. But then the song is so underwhelming that it's like, well, I wish I would have put this on something else, because it's kind of wasted here.
Yeah.
But the production is great. Like, I really like the production on the album. The verses are few and small, and as an intro to the record, I thought it could be shorter, because I felt like it just went on, and it wasn't really doing anything. To then transition into Funky Boss, which, again, it's like, it's funky, but there's no verses. It's just the repeating, funky boss, get off my back. It's like,
Funky Boss. Like, to bring up someone being a boss, like, it feels like something, you gotta be talking about something, right? Like, either I'm cool or, fuck the man. Just something, like.
Are you saying you'd rather them...
The funky demogorgon. Yes.
I see.
Dude,
Oh my god,
this
ow.
album, and I felt so bad. I felt so bad thinking to myself, like, oh my god, so much of this sounds like fucking, what the hell's the name of it?
Urban Dance Squad. I see.
That fucking name.
I hate to bring people into the bit again, but I have to. So, ow, holy shit, I'm in so much pain right now. Okay, so, I was laughing, and it was hard for me to really get it out, but I wanted to say Funky Demagogue so bad. But you fucking got it out, and in laughing at it, my arm shot back in my chair, and I hit my funny bone harder than I'd ever have in my entire life, and like my whole arm is numb.
Oh no!
My elbow hurts so fucking bad, and like my fucking pinky and like ring finger have like no feeling.
Yo! For anyone who hasn't heard the episode, definitely go back and listen to it.
Oh my god,
what a word salad of an album. But just the fact of it being referenced here and being so goddamn rib-ticklingly hilarious to us that it destroys Muse's funny bone. Just tells you everything you need to know.
Obliterates it.
Like, maybe, but because there's just no... I mean, if it's just supposed to be that sort of abstract, like, what was that one group who made that song, A's are good, A's are good, XTC or whatever the heck it is, where they're like, oh, we're saying that we like, dropping acid, but we can't, like, say it on the radio, so we make a nonsense phrase. So I can't say fuck my boss, but I can't say funky boss. Yeah, like, I guess. I mean, like,
whatever.
Yeah, like, when I came into it, I was like, I remember first writing, like, okay, so it's kind of like a Gorillaz thing. We're just going to kind of get a variety hour, a variety pack of different types of tracks. But, and like, in that, I could still enjoy a Gorillaz album, even though, like, they won't be perfect, right? It's like a grab bag. Some stuff is a little bit more creative. Some stuff is a little bit less, whatever. But, yeah, with this, it's just so, like, you would think guys with such a specific style would, like, have more going on in the tracks, but it just feels like they're just, like, so just, like, playing around in the studio and doing whatever, that it's just, like, so much just passes by, like, sands through the hourglass, you know what I mean? Where it's just like, okay, that track was high energy, but it didn't mean anything to me. And, that track was fine, but it didn't, nothing happened. So, yeah, like you said, like, the singles I'm remembering the most, but it's like, Is that just because the mixing was the best because they knew that was going to be the single? Or is that just because those are the nonsense phrases that I enjoy the most because I heard them? You know what I mean? Like, in the same way that, like, I'm sure Intergalactic isn't like a masterpiece, and he said they say shit about, like, oh, I like my sugar with coffee and cream or whatever the hell. But, you know, like, it gets you in the mood, and it's so, like, the production of it is so good. But with so many of these tracks, it's just like, there just needs to be more happening for me to dig into this. Now, there were one or two tracks where they do like the fucking chilled out diggable planets type shit, which is where I'd be like, yo, like, I want to luxuriate in this a little bit more, like, and Something's Got to Give. And, what was the other track at the end? Namaste? Dude, the fucking dope ass, just like, chilled out, like, yo, the beat poetry where he's just kind of talking about like, oh man, this, you know, my fear was just a shadow, and then a voice spoke in my head, and she said that dark is not the opposite of light. It's the absence of life. And I thought to myself, she knows what she's talking about. And for a moment, I knew what it was all about. And, you know, it might be deep, or it might just be like weed talk, but it sounds cool, like, you know.
Like, I know who was it, MCA was kind of getting into that stuff around this time, so...
And MCA is like my favorite member of the group because I feel like he has the most distinctive voice, and I honestly feel like he has the most multis of them, you know, he's most creative.
I think Pass the Mic is when the album starts for me, because I usually just skip to that one immediately. I really like the feel of that one. They're all just like taking their turns, speaking their piece, passing to the next guy.
Yeah, you're just rotating and hearing everything, like, you know.
It's got a really good instrumental, really good beat. I really like that cut. It's just like, I hate sitting through those first two cuts to get to it. It's just like, I'll just see myself to pass the mic, thank you. And for me, I honestly, I'm gonna sound like I'm really being hard on this album, but there weren't any songs I absolutely don't like. There's just ones that I don't always want to hear. The last cut that I would really want to sit through, I guess, would be the Maestro. And that's kind of early in the album, because you've still got like 7 tracks after that.
And even that one, I don't really mess with like
it's
that. It's
still
like,
weird, yeah.
Yeah, and what was that part at the end where they're like shouting out cop shows
okay,
or something?
Yeah.
It just gets so like distorted and stuff where I'm just like, what is happening? I just hear Barnaby Jones, whoa, Columbo, whoa.
It starts with, according to Genius, an alleged answering machine message left by Alan Sylvie after calling the phone number for Paul's Boutique. Given in a track on that album where it says, it just gives a phone number. Paul's Boutique isn't a real place, but they have a mini commercial for it, and then they say, ask for Janice, call this number at Paul's Boutique. And then it ends with him, with one of the dudes just going, oh yeah, I need a little bit of cooperation right now. I'd like to find out whose favorite detective it is. Who is this? Is it Mannix? Barnaby Jones? Someone say Columbo? Mickey Mulrooney? Is it Cannon? And then he goes, Barnaby Jones? I said that already. That makes me laugh if you're listening to him just going, I said that already. Like it's a genuine fuck up, it sounds like.
Yeah.
But it really does just sound like they're just fucking around, and I guess I appreciate it on that level.
Going back to Pass the Mic, like, yeah, like, I enjoy the energy of that song, and I feel like every time, like, they finish the verses and the beat, like, really pulls back in, like, I feel like I'm just enjoying the intensity of the energy of that so much, that it's just like, oh yeah, I dig it. But the only time I especially was thinking was like the part at the end where he goes like, but for now, I'd like to ask you how you like the feel of the bass in your face of the crowd. Like when that drop happens, there is no bass happening.
No, yeah.
I specifically noticed that. I was like, what the hell?
It's just a signature sound on this album, the fucking distorted guitar.
Yeah, and the drum fill.
I have written down that this is a smorgasbord of old school hip hop cliches and I guess tropes Because I'm just looking through here. I mean, you got, my name is D, y'all, and I don't play, and I can rock a block party till your hair turns gray. And then later there's like, I'm the ADROCK in the place with the bass, I'm going all the way. And there's like a lot of those where it's like, well, I'm on till the crack of dawn, mowing down MCs like I'm mowing the lawn. Like, it's a lot of that shit, and it's like, if you don't mind that it's just that, and there really isn't a whole lot else going on, it's just the feeling of it. And it's like, if you're down with their mood and what they're doing, it's like, okay. Other than that, though, it's like, yeah, I can get how this isn't exactly, you know, this isn't a masterpiece, you know?
I enjoyed Professor Booty, but it was just
that was a good
weird one. Like lyrically, I think it was one of the better tracks, but everything around it was so odd because it's like, it starts off, you know, I mean, what a fucking name. Like, it sounds like it's about to be something, but it really never is. The beginning's that simple where it's just like, hey, what's another word for pirate treasure? And, you know, you hear the obvious like, well, I think they call it booty. And you're thinking like, oh.
Booty, that's what it is.
Yeah, it's gonna be like a fun cut about like, you know, a dude who's getting lots of chicks, you know, like, not really, no.
And I went and I listened to the song it samples, and I don't even think it's really a thing in the original either. Like, it just starts with a guy saying that, and then it just kind of goes on from there. Like, it's just to get your attention, I think.
Yeah, and there's a part later on in the song that sounds like Beavis and Butthead breathing.
There's another song on, I want to say it's Paul's Boutique, that uses that same, it's very, like, breathy kind of moaning. I think it might be from the same thing. It was just kind of like a leftover thing they had. And they're like, just throw it on Professor Booty, I guess. It's so far into the album, who's paying attention?
It's so weirdly impactful sounding that it feels like something else, like something should be happening there, but it just...
Like,
it's like, what? Is someone like dying or something?
They're very instrumental heavy on the end of the album with Groove Homes into...
Yeah.
The one... here's basically where I start skipping, and I realize I really don't need to listen to the rest of the album, because back-to-back, Live at PJ's and Mark on the Bus, they're really nothing cuts.
Yeah.
Especially Mark on the Bus. Like, that's just literally like a skit. I don't know what the fuck that's doing there.
Like, again, hearing it for the first time, it starts and it feels like there's so many words in it. It feels like it's going to be a song, but then it just isn't.
No, not really.
Let me see. What were my favorite tracks? My favorite tracks were So What You Want. Stay Together was a solid enough groove, but I don't remember really liking it. Professor Booty, Namaste, and I think the other track that's kind of like Something's Got to Give, like, that's really it, like...
Man, and Something's Got to Give is actually another song I usually skip.
Because it is just a little too light, yeah, like...
I'll skip that, and then... I love what constitutes as skits on a Beastie Boys album, especially in 1991 or 2. What the fuck the Blue Nun is, it's just there.
What the hell is that?
At least, all I gotta say, these skits are very short, and they don't waste too much of your time. Like that and Biz versus the Nuge, they're just there, and they're done, and it's on to the next. Overall, I ended up with a... Hold on, let me double check. I got a 3.5.
Overall, I gave it a 2.
Wow.
Like, I am sorry, but this... and, like, I even say that as someone who, like, we listened to the other album that's basically this, but just more charged up. You know what I'm saying?
I guess, I mean, it was the follow-up. Maybe they got some feedback. Maybe, I don't know, they had the experience on this one.
Could tighten up. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the dry run, is the practice round for Ill Communication, where they were able to perfect it a little better, yeah. The next album we got, requested by Michael Adamvich, is Big Sean with Detroit 2. RC, it has been, my God, 6 years. And even that was a request. We've never, on our own, wanted to review Big Sean. It's always been suggested, insisted upon by the audience, and for that we thank you. But But yeah, Big Sean isn't someone I really think about like that, so...
He's like, one of those guys who's, like, he's in hip-hop, and he tries to be, like, the super lyrical, because it's like, hey, I want to be on the Kendrick level, too, but I also want to have my big hip-hop songs where I just say mindless shit, and I get big pop hits off of it, go stupid. You know what I mean? Like, he's definitely a dude who tries to, like, play both sides of the fence, like, concerning, like, trying to balance the, hey, I'm still a respected rapper, but, I gotta make these, like, pop hits, whatever. And they're mostly about, like, how he's, like, grounded and on his grind, and, like, I don't know, his voice just always seems like, I don't want to, like, I don't know if, like, weak is the word to say, but I always just seem like
Yeah,
when he's doing, like, more intense stuff, it feels like he's, like, running out of breath, in a weird way, where it's like, and I feel like that's supposed to be like, oh, but that's showing the intensity, but it's like, no, it just sounds like he's not as strong, you know what I mean? Like, and now he mentioned at one point that he actually had some sort of, like, what was that?
He does bring up a heart condition at one point.
Like, maybe some sort of respiratory issue? Like, so it was like...
I don't know about that.
Yeah, so it was like, maybe that's it, and I should feel like a jerk for thinking that, but it's like, I can't not think that when, like, the point is, when you're rapping, you're supposed to sound convincing as this, like, dude who's, like, the bravado you don't fuck with, but when he actually, like, does kind of sound like, I don't want to say like a pipsqueak, but it just sounds like, I'm just as lyrical as them, like, it's like, I'm pushing as far as I can, like, it has like a Scrappy-Doo quality at certain points, where it's just like, oh, I can do it too, and like, and now this sounds like I'm clowning too much, like, out the gate, because, like, I actually do feel like Big Sean is one of those guys that people don't, like, give enough credit, actually, because you do actually hear at points where he's just like, no, I know I did the dance ass song, so I'm actually gonna, like, really go hard and, like, really, like, write some dope ass lyrics, write some actual, like, thought provoking shit, because he does do that every now and then, where it's just like, yo, you actually sound like you, like, worked on this shit. Like, Single Again, that's one of those one-off singles that he did that I, like, really liked, because it sounded like he was, like, it didn't just sound like a typical, fuck my ex, I'm flexing on my bitch and getting all these other hoes. It sounded like he's like, no, I'm actually gonna take time to, be a better person and, like, learn from my experiences. Like, that's the type of shit that you hear with Big Sean. So, like, there's a lot of the, I'm on my grind, working from 10 to 10, hustle and grind. Like, there's a lot of that where it's just, like, kind of the samey, but, like, every now and then you get, like, things where it's just, like, no, but he actually is really, like, having moments where he has introspection and wants, his audience to think about certain things that he's thinking about, and give them a piece of his mind. And so it is this thing where I'm like, I do want to give him props in a lot of ways where, like, he's not being lazy. But then it kind of goes in the other way in some respects where he's giving us maybe a little bit too much of his thoughts, like, one or two of these times where I'm like, oh, we're venturing into, fake, deep, conspiracy brother territory, like, uh-oh. Yeah, and I wanted to excuse it at first, like, the first song where he mentions, like, hey, these doctors, tried to get me to do all these things that would have been expensive, and, I went through the, whatever, homeopathic or whatever route, and, it was a little, I didn't have to deal with the issue then. It's like, okay, that realistically happened for you, so I don't want to, like, negate that experience. But then when you have a fucking lyric about, like, oh, I don't even get flu shots, and then I'm like, back up, when did this album come out? Oh, 2020, this feels like you are responding to a specific zeitgeist saying, hey, guys, we should be, like, get on the level of what's going on, and, oh my god, like, is this what's gonna happen? Is going forward, are we gonna, like, be exposed to all of the rappers who got internet brain, and have had their heads melted by conspiracy theories, and all the albums are going to be getting going for it. Yeah, we're going to be all these rappers saying, I don't wear no mask, mask off. Mask off remix, bitch. All the rappers who don't want to wear masks in the fucking pandemic.
I'm feeling a bit like your boy's Pitchfork on this one. Because it seems like a lot of people were really giving Big Sean the props on this one, giving him the well-deserved kudos, the pats on the back. I really didn't feel this album like that. And there are points, though, that I do gotta give it to where you said before that, he went from, the dance ass guy, to he's talking about some real shit. And he does on a good bit of this album, and I got to give him credit for, rapping about some real stuff and, some deep personal stuff. That's great. It's just that the songs themselves, I don't think are that great.
And there's
Like-
so many of them. It like, dude,
Yeah.
listening to both of these albums this week, and like having to look at the track list of like both and seeing like 20 for each one is just like,
Yeah. So, with the last one, I went, favorites first. With this one, I want to go through the songs that I gave the lowest ratings to,
Okay.
because I think some of them we might be in agreement, some of them maybe not.
Yeah.
So first of all, the ones that got the absolute lowest ratings, Time In featuring
Oh my
2088.
This 2088 thing where they're like, me and Janae Aiko are like a collaborative team because we're a couple. Sometimes I don't know what the
we were a couple at some point, yeah.
Yeah, but apparently they still hang out because I remember randomly seeing Instagrams where they're like clearly like zonked out on weed and just like fucking vibing.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay, if they can still be
good
friends,
for them.
Staying healthy, like that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, I love to see that. You know what I mean? But
Yep.
I don't need to hear these collaborations that are just kind of like, you know, as vibey and zoned out as they seem in real life. You know what I mean? Where it's just kind of like, oh, okay, I guess it's cool that you guys are enjoying each other's company, but there's no like specific spark that comes out of like, oh, but forget that song with Big Sean and that other R&B singer. You gotta hear the song with Big Sean and this R&B singer. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that energy on either of these tracks that they do on here. And I feel like there was another song I heard before that was like, I remember seeing the name 2088 and be like, oh, who's this rapper? What? I haven't heard of them before. And be like, oh, it's just Janae Aiko and Big Sean whenever they collab. And I'm like, oh, what are their songs like?
Oh.
It's just kind of airy, and they're just kind of going. It's just like, all right.
It didn't get as low of a rating, but yeah, I wasn't a fan of Body Language featuring Ty Dolla $ign and Janae Aiko either, with fucking Ty and his kind of cringy autotune shit, and I just wasn't feeling that cut at all.
Just the way that track like sound, it has that eventless chorus thing that I talked about. You know, where it's just like, there's a hook kind of happening, and it takes you a little while to realize, like, oh, this is the part that you want to be catchy, that you want me to remember, you know what I mean? And it reminds me of that other song he did with Chris Brown that also had that early 90s, like, New Jack Swing, big melody thing going on in the background for, like, the sample. You know, girl, it's true. The big, like, fuzzy sounding sample with all the New Jack Swing harmonies going on in it, you know what I mean? Like, it also had that similar feel to it. But again, it also had that similar feel of like, I'm not remembering what this hook is, even as it's happening, because it's just like, the beat just sounds so like, it doesn't sound together, you know what I mean? Like, even as I'm looking at the hook, like, I'm not remembering how it went as I'm looking at the words, you know? I do remember what Big Sean says at the beginning, which sounds like really intimate, and he has like lyrics on here that really do have flashes of like, you know, that really more intimate sounding rapper who's like, hey, this guy's the playboy rapper because when you listen to him, like, he's saying something that's, like, really kind of, like, getting to you as you listen to him, right? Like, at the beginning, has that one lyric, is like, don't just take your clothes off, take the problems off, take the armor off, take the drama off, you know? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's the thing that kind of digs in, like, oh, I get what you're trying to say, you know? And a little bit something more that you can really, like, you know, feel and listen to, you know what I mean? And so, like, and there's moments of that. I even actually enjoyed Wolves. I thought that was a solid enough hook. I think Post Malone was just kind of there. It was all right. I liked his.
I like him when he's featured. I think I like Post Malone better when he's a featured act.
Yeah, and I think at the end, you know, where he says he said you died for me. Well, there's the ground. Like,
oh shit.
You know, you know what I'm saying. So I do like the button at the end of the verse, and that's really what it is for like some of these tracks where like some tracks don't have that button at the end that kind of like really makes it stand out, where it'll just be like they'll drop a ball and like the hook and the verse will be over and then there'll be like an extra couple of lyrics and it'll be like, okay, that wasn't as dope to be worth being like the last couple of lyrics there. You know there'll be like moments like that throughout the album, you know what I mean?
The other song I gave the lowest rating to besides the 2088 cut, we might be of different opinions on this one. Friday Night Cypher.
I actually really enjoyed that one.
I felt like we were gonna disagree on that
Again,
one.
it's a variety hour track where it's like,
Yeah.
yo, this album is called Detroit 2. So I, in addition to there's skits on here that are like famous celebrities talking about, moments in Detroit that they had.
Yeah.
So the album's supposed to be like, hey, you're getting a piece of the city. So in that respect, it's like, I get it. Like, he's trying to, get the people on to shine, right? And, I feel like they're good for the most part. There's like one or two verses that are particularly not special, but like, it's like fine. It didn't need to be as long as it was. Like, as soon as you see the 9 minutes.
Yeah.
But I did enjoy
I feel like the moments that were better weren't worth waiting for.
Yeah, like, I did enjoy that it wasn't just like one beat the whole time, and that they did have switch ups, you know what I'm saying, stuff like that. Like, so, like, they were trying to like keep you up in a certain capacity, But yeah, it's just like going so long and not having that many real punches from certain people, where it's just like, okay, you're just being kind of swaggy and flexy, but it's just like, all right, but so was the last guy, and where the fuck is Danny Brown? Goddammit!
Yeah, that's true.
That would have fucking livened this shit up real quick.
You have Dave Chappelle mention Danny Brown in his fucking story, and then he's nowhere to be seen. They did feature Eminem, though, which I was surprised to see, even though, I guess, when you think Detroit, one of the biggest names overall is Eminem. For some reason, though, his appearance on the album was still a surprise to me. I guess I just wasn't thinking about him.
Eminem and Big Sean fuck with each other like that, And
so it was like, oh, okay, it's Eminem, and he's doing that flow I hate.
No, but I think he had a lot of good punchlines on this one. It was definitely a little overwrought, as he's kind of is at this stage. But, like, I still think it, like, kind of came with it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
enough punchlines to be worth, the time. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, okay, this is going on for a while, and there is enough in here that makes it worth it, as opposed to, like, just doing the flowing over and over like he does. Like, the very first line, like, it's a cool little flow, but it's just kind of for the purpose of him doing the little, like, lyric there, as opposed to, like, saying something, like, legitimately clever. You know what I'm saying? It's, like, that sort of thing. And so I like some of the skits. Like, I like the story by Erykah Badu. I like the story by Stevie Wonder. I think that's very interesting that there's this thing where, like, people think that Stevie Wonder's not actually blind.
Oh, yeah.
And he has one part on here where he specifically says, and it, like, stands out because his voice sounds like it's actually a little bit louder than it was before. So he says something where he's like, Stevie Wonder's reminiscing. He's like, I remember when the girls come around, I would sing on the front porch, beating on the stairs and singing for hours and hours and hours, seeing a piano for the first time. But the amazing thing is, and I was seeing a piano for the but it was like the first skit from Dave Chappelle just kind of felt a little aimless and went nowhere. Like, it felt like it was supposed to be something like, oh, Danny Brown's dad showed up or something like that, right? And
oh, yeah, it was Big Sean's dad, but fucking Danny Brown was also there.
Yeah, but Danny Brown doesn't factor into the story. Like, it was just like, oh, I saw Danny Brown was there, and he was like, yo, I'm gonna smoke some weed. He's like, okay, and I saw him in the crowd, and it was like, all right.
The setup there was that he was bombing so bad that he looked out into the audience and saw Danny Brown leaving.
Oh.
At that point, it was like, oh, fuck, I even lost Danny Brown. Oh, no. This is it. It's a wrap.
But I just thought, like, he was gonna see him at some point, and for it to be like, oh, but then I met someone else. Like, it just feels weird. You know what I mean? Like, but, and then also for the story to be like the way it ends doesn't have, like, the feel-good type of storytelling conclusion or anything to that effect, because it's just kind of like it's not.
It really is just anything can happen in Detroit.
Yeah, it's like anything can happen in Detroit. But the thing that happened to him was, I happened to see Danny Brown, and then I saw Big Sean's dad, and he told me some special stuff that I'm not gonna say here, even though that would, like, be the bow on the story. You know what I mean? Like, he just says that he gave him some advice and doesn't really say what it is. And it was just like, okay, but you had this all the build up, and I want to hear something. Like, I want to hear some piece of advice at the end of the day. But the only advice was go to Detroit. Da 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 da. Like, I feel like this is just an ad for Detroit. You know.
The only thing I got out of it is that Dave Chappelle bombed. Like, all right. Cool story. You went on stage and you had a shitty set.
Yeah,
cool,
and
I
then
guess.
someone talked to you afterwards who happened to be, you know, like, it's just like
someone talked to you?
Like
what the fuck?
That it was Big Sean's dad is kind of interesting, but to hear what he actually said would have been nice, you know, like.
Okay, so here's the thing. Did he know he was Big Sean's dad at first? Or did he say in the point where he was telling him the fucking lost in translation Bill Murray, fill in the gaps, we'll never know. Hey, by the way, I'm Big Sean's dad. Like, how did Dave Chappelle know? Because you can't just, I recognize you as the father of that rapper.
Right.
Like, does he look a lot like him? And then you go, hey, are you related to Big Sean? It's like, funny you should ask. I'm his dad. It's like, oh, I knew it. Like, what happened there?
This is what he says in the story. He says, I go back to the dressing room and everyone, you know, there's a stink on you after your bomb, where everyone looks at you like, you know what I mean? Like, head wound Harry, like, oh, nigga, are you okay? But I really can't explain it to you. I really didn't care. And then it turns out that this kind older gentleman was Big Sean's father. And my goodness, he gave me a pep talk that only a dad could give. And it made me feel wonderful. And it's like, okay.
What the fuck? Why include it? Why even put this on the album?
Like, it only matters
pointless.
to Big Sean that happened. You know what I mean? Like,
and he wasn't even there for it.
yeah, that's the thing. It's not like, oh, and then me and Big Sean and, you know, Danny Brown all smoked a bowl, and then Einstein showed up and he clapped. Like, you know, like, just something.
Other songs I gave really low ratings to. Man, this is this stretch right here, unfortunately, pretty bad row here. ZTFO.
That one was one that, like, had potential. Or it was like, okay, you're going for a catchy hit that's gonna, like, you know, be on the TikTok, you know, and say, oh, we're gonna get this hashtagging ZTFO, you know, but
Zone the fuck out. Like, it felt so crammed in there. I'm gonna zone the fuck out.
yeah, but like I would have at least rocked with it if the verses had something to do with it. But like, if it was like, oh, I'm zen the fuck out, and the verses were like, I'm meditating, you can't fuck with my mode. You know what I'm saying? Like, and he sounded really relaxed, but he doesn't. He's on that, you know, yappy dog high energy thing again. You know what I'm saying? He was like, get the fuck out of my face, everybody, and it's just like, well, I thought you were zen the fuck out. What, you know, like.
And that we get Zen the Fuck Out and Lithuania, two tracks that, because they're Travis Scott tracks, they're kind of indistinguishable,
Absolutely.
and I couldn't tell you the difference.
Absolutely.
It's just, yeah, it's lit!
Yeah, it's lit!
Yeah! Like,
Is it?
alright.
I thought you were zen the fuck out!
Talking about wasted potential, whenever I see Anderson .Paak in a track listing, I always have high expectations. I wasn't really feeling Guard Your Head either. Like, I thought Anderson did fine on that, but, like, the track was just, like, dull to me.
Yeah, and it was so all over the place, and, like...
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it was one of those things was like, Anderson .Paak was there and was like, oh, here you go, and then they just, like, didn't keep it structured in a way that would have made it, like, as good. Like, I appreciate Wale, like, at the end, kind of saying what he said about, you know, like... you know, the Robins robbed you wildin' because your product gone. We mad that Eric Garner, Brianna, and Gianna father gone. You know, like, I love, like, shouting that out. But yeah, in general, it just kind of feels kind of, like, loose and kind of, like, especially with the beginning part with the early Mac dude, who's just saying, like,
yeah,
if you say nigga, I'm gonna say, is that a Ritz? Like, and it's just, like, it's not as clever as it seems like he feels it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And just in general, like, I mean, I guess, you know, yeah, if you say, nigga, like, all right, I'll call you cracker or whatever, but, like, you know, it just feels like it's so initially going off of the, oh, mayo faces, you know, like, that sort of thing, where it's just like, that's not as big of, like, a punch as, like, actually calling out the actual systemic issues that are being brought. You know what I'm saying? As I was like,
yeah, I get you there.
Yeah, like, I want to hear a Dead Prez song talk about the systemic issues. I don't want to just hear him say, ooh, let's kill some white people. You know, like...
Respect featuring Hit Boy and Young Thug.
It was okay. Young Thug was alright. I think this is one of the ones where Big Big Sean kind of dropped the ball, especially at the end. I think it was that part where he like added something at the ending where it was just like, oh, was that supposed to be like a big ending punch lyric, extra lyric there, but it just kind of didn't land. And then yeah, that Lithuania track where I'm trying to figure out what Lithuania had to do with anything.
Full Circle featuring Key, Wayne, and Diddy. What the fuck was Diddy even doing there?
I think I liked this song, but then yeah, I had that moment of like, what's happening? And it purely felt like, and that's the thing I feel like with Big Sean in general. There's this sort of like, finally famous. It's all about getting famous, and look who I got. Look, I got P. Diddy. Look, I'm famous. I got P. Diddy. And it's just like, I don't know, with the person you get to be like, look, I'm on top and my words really matter. Be P. Diddy, you know, that's something when you only get for the flex of it, not for like the hip hop respect of it. You know what I mean? Because like it's not like P. Diddy, like, oh, the stamp of quality, P. Diddy, like,
especially in 2020.
You know what I'm saying?
Not so much.
And now P. Diddy's voice sounds kind of interesting. Like, you know, he sounds like an older man who's got a little bit of gruff to his voice. So in that, I kind of thought it was cool. But in the obvious way of like his usage here being so clearly just the, oh, our names are Sean and he's a big money making guy, so look, you know, I'm borrowing a little bit of that glisten, I'm borrowing a little bit of that shine of his, you know, like it felt like that more than an actual like song that I want to listen to.
You're saying it was kind of like NASA, where they just had like a whole bunch of big names on the album,
right?
But it just kind of felt like it was too flex that, hey, look who we can get.
Yeah, Dawn Life, I actually really like that track.
I liked that too, and I thought Wayne did okay on that one.
Yeah, and but it was especially the way they epicked up the beat, the human nature beat, like that.
Oh yeah,
that I can enjoy, right? When you're like, okay, we know you've heard the sample, but they made it sound different. They made it sound like there was a little bit more oomph going under it with the twinkling in the keys. You know what I mean? The way the jangling keys were like more spread out over the beat and shit. You know, so like yeah, like there's definitely good moments on this album. But it is so long, and there is so much time for stuff to not, like, if you care specifically about Big Sean, I guess this matters. Like, if you care about his relationship with Jhené Aiko and that they're good friends and that they did 2 tracks together, I guess that's nice. But, like, you know, the material thing that I'm getting from it doesn't really add up to much. You know what I mean? Like, why would I stop? Like, the intro tracks are good.
Why would I stop was all right.
Like they're good from like here comes the album, you know, standpoint, right? Like
yeah, and like I never really, because I mean I'll just admit I don't really listen to Big Sean like that. So when I hear like speed rapping segments from him, I'm like, oh, okay. And it honestly wasn't the kind of speed rapping that I've shit on before, where it's just like speed rapping just to do it, and it sounds shitty, and you can't understand what he's saying. Like, I think he does it pretty well.
Like, he does it where he's, like, switching up the flow in a way, switching up the beat pattern mid-flow so that it sounds interesting to your ear, how he's flipping off of the beat in certain respects. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it fits, but, like, yeah, as an intro to the record, I don't really know if it's, you know, I ended up liking Lucky Me and Deep Reverence more.
I get you on that.
Than that one.
And like I said, like sometimes when he's doing the like, I'm going really fast with the flow, but like I still hear the sort of like breathiness in his tone where it sounds like, and there's not enough like punchlines to really like make up for the fact that he sounds like, oh, he's breathy and so exasperated, but it's just because like there's so much good lyricism coming out. It's more just like, oh, he's connecting these words in interesting ways, but and he sounds really exasperated, but it's not like the sort of like Eminem thing where it's just like, oh shit, there's so many flow. How is he thinking of this and still going? You know what I mean? Like, it's not necessarily on that Kendrick level. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
And I hate to keep dogging him on that level of it. Oh, not as good as Kendrick, though, because it's like, he is better than the average rapper. Like, you gotta give him that, you know?
You keep bringing up like this fucking salt in the control wounds.
Right, and he even mentions on here, it's like, hey man, I even, you know, reached out to him and be like, look, it's not really beef like that, right? Like, this is all music, and it's like, I appreciate, like, him, you know, having positive moments of, like, saying things like that, right?
Yeah.
Of, like, you know, I'm trying to make things better and be an actively positive person and things in that respect. Of course, like, I don't think it was ever really that deep, but, you know, it's always good to, like, just, like, double check and be like, hey, you know, this is all music at the end of the day, right? But, yeah, it's that sort of,
and
like...
the audience is always gonna be interested and care and ask questions anyway, so it's probably just best to put it out there to shut people up.
Yeah.
A cut I thought that was kind of hit or miss I also didn't think the album ended that strong with the Still Rise. I thought the production was really good.
Yeah, and I thought the last things he said was kind of like interesting and inspiring, you know. But it's like, yeah, the verse that I don't know, it just didn't feel worth what was happening. Like I didn't feel like I needed to pay attention until he started talking at the end about, you know, saying some actual like interesting shit about how like you know, some losses teach you how to win. Some losses teach you more than any winning could ever teach you. You know, and it's like, oh, that's kind of like a good thing to like keep in mind. You know what I mean? And like that's the type of shit that I like to hear him say. You know, it's just like, oh yeah, that's really cool. Like, or when he says, ain't no mistakes, ain't no regrets. Regrets are only there because you ain't learned your lesson or forgave yourself. Either or, you know, like just kind of like when he's just like, kind of flowing about these things. Are like, oh, yeah, contemplations on life. You know, like I just wish he could have really like gotten a really tight, you know, amalgamation of all of those thoughts and was able to spread them out in a tighter way over this album. You know, because there's just so much you have to get through that's just kind of white noise of music. You know what I'm saying?
I wasn't fucking with The Baddest.
I can't even.
Gotta show these bitches we're the baddest.
Again,
gotta
that's
show
one
them
of
on
those
the
tracks
bed.
where I was just like, I can't even. My eyes are glazing over. My ears are glazing over. Like,
yeah, like I see. First thing I have written down is, Jesus, are you fucking kidding me?
Like, you didn't already make this song like 6 years ago? Like The Baddest? You hadn't already done this? She the baddest. Yeah.
There were a couple tracks on here that absolutely felt like you've been in this for how long? Like, it felt like first album kind of shit. And I was like, I don't know if this is the kind of shit you're making, like 4 or 5 albums into a fucking career.
Yeah.
And I don't even really have much to say about that. The only other two I have written down that we didn't say anything about yet were Everything That's Missing, which also kind of felt like it was missing something.
No, but I did enjoy that one enough. Like, I like the way he ended it, you know, where he said, like, hey, I hope I hope at the end of your road, or he's talking about himself, where he's just like, I feel like I got everything that I was missing this whole time. Like, he's fulfilling his dreams, and he's like having that realization moment and laying it out in a way that I thought was kind of cool. And wishing that success to you, like, earlier on the verse, you know? Like, I thought it was kind of cool in the way of tying that together in a certain capacity.
That's the thing. Like, it has moments, and he says cool things, but not in the coolest way for me.
I get that, yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm rocking with a lot of what you're saying here. Great stuff. Not really catchy, memorable songs, though. You know?
Yeah.
Like, as platitudes? Sure. As a track I want to listen to again? No. Here is where I came out with the 2.5. I wasn't feeling this album all that strongly.
I gave it a 3.5 because, like I said, I do see the good moments there, but it is another one of those things where, like, it's just so cluttered. And for someone who like seems to want you to think that his discography is the greatest of all time, like, it really doesn't seem like he's like actively like, you know, trying to like push for like quality, because there's still like obviously that, but I want these to be hit singles and I want these to be hits, but they're not like that catchy for it to really work with a lot of them. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah. I do want to point out one lyric. Who is it? I can't remember who said it, but on the Friday Night Diver, where someone had said like, paid 90 for my grill. Well, he said like, big nigga fresher than you. Fuck you and your stylist. Whoa. Paid 90 for my grill, then lost it. That's why I ain't smiling. Damn. I just love that moment of like, you know, we always talk about like, man, these rappers who you know, these rappers always look like they're mad and they're angry, they got an attitude. It's like, oh yeah, you paid 90K for a grill and then you lost it. No, I get why you're not smiling. I absolutely understand, my friend. I think it was T Grizzly, yeah. that quite a thing to brag about too. To be like, takes quite the man in hip hop to be like, no, yeah, I lost it and it cost a lot of money. You know,
it's funny now. I can laugh now. But that about wraps it up for this week's episode and for the album reviews. And if there is an album that you would like to hear us talk about, head on over to our Ko-fi. That is ko-fi.com/goinoff, GOINOFF. The prices are a little steep until we can play some catch-up some more. I know we've said that for the past few weeks, but we are getting there, show by show, review by review.
That's right.
I think you might have said that we were sitting out next week, was it?
Yeah, because I just need to work on my episode and other, you know what I mean, just have free time to work on stuff. Yeah.
I just want to give the folks a heads up because I'll forget. And I'll be editing this episode and forget and go ahead and fucking take notes.
I mean, just as,
for the next few.
Just as internet people, like, we have to, like, realize that we are making our own schedule. You know what I mean? There's no boss to be like, all right, now here's the hours that you put in. It's just kind of like, well, are you going to put out it then? And then be like, oh no, we can't then. We got to, and it's just like remembering that, like, we are our own, promotional apparatus to, like, tell people when we are and aren't doing shit.
Yeah, and, sometimes other projects have to take a step back. But, that's just the way it goes.
But you know what? You make like the stars when they align and you plan it out.
Oh. You made us sit through how long for that gold? That fucking genius gem.
That
right
genius
there.
Lyric about planets that aren't stars.
They're planets. There's the difference there. No, still, I like it. Don't talk me out of it. All the other links to our socials are in the description, and if this happens to be your first time listening to us, all of our old episodes are on our back catalog. That's YouTube, that's iTunes, that's SoundCloud, that's Spotify. RC, we're coming up on 300 in a few months.
Oh my goodness. Can you believe it?
Can you dig it? We're creeping up.
We got to do something.
It's on the horizon. Yeah. I think there's just enough episodes out for us to actually have an idea, think of something, and not have it sneak up on us to where we don't have enough time to actually execute it. Which happens every time.
Right? Oh, shit. You know what I was thinking? I think you had mentioned this at one point. We're like going through and actually listening through to our podcast and like finding those worst songs. And like doing a compilation and maybe putting out like a list or something like that, like a Spotify playlist.
Oh my god!
Because I've been going through and be like, oh yeah, I remember that one and that one.
Okay. Well, here's the thing though. I gotta lay a ground rule down right away.
No Sesame Street gangsters.
Well, they were who I thought of, but if we're gonna do that. I think you can include the Sesame Street Gangsters, but you can only do one song per album.
Yes, that needs to be
because there were some absolute garbage albums. Like I know, what the fuck, Lil B, was it Taste the Secret, whatever the fuck, Ugly Duckling. I know they hold special places in your heart, and I know you're gonna want to go back to that well more than once. But we gotta draw the line in the sand somewhere.
Oh.
We gotta lay the restrictions. Uh-oh. I lost RC. He just hung up on me. Because I told him he can't talk about Ugly Duckling again. RC, is it because I said you couldn't do more than one Ugly Duckling song that you hung up on my ass?
This friendship is over.
That is it.
Tell me how to run my bike.
We ain't making it to 280, motherfucker. That's it.
I'll put the whole Starship Bomb, whatever the fuck I mean. No, but
oh shit.
You know what would be a good idea? In addition to doing like the worst songs on the album, how about we also do a best songs on an awful album?
Ooh.
Wouldn't that, because like we do kind of have that thing of like, hey, we talk about Insane Clown Posse, we're like, but they have good songs, right? Like
they do.
Wouldn't it be good to be like, okay, here are the songs that if you ever fuck with them, just listen to this track,
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I was thinking like that Meet the Secret or whatever the fuck it is, Taste the Secret or whatever the fuck. Like that one vegan track, I remember at the end, I actually remember kind of liking. It's like divorced from the rest of this album. Like a song was like, oh, here's the song about these like, loopy Californian vegans. Like, okay, that's kind of a cool concept. Like if I just
I forgot about that.
Right? Like if I didn't have to think about how the awful quality of the rest of this album.
Yeah.
You know, so it would be cool to be able to, like, do little shout-outs like that, you know?
That's not a bad idea, yeah. I'm gonna start thinking about that soon.
Like, the best
So
the worst of the worst, and then a best of the worst, you know? Like...
Best of the worst, yeah. But that about does it for this week's show. RC, is there anything else you wanted to throw out there, plug and promote, that the folks should be paying attention to and know about?
Oh, man, just, definitely check out our sister podcast, Review Anew. Definitely, follow me on my streams. Definitely support your boy on the Patreons because you get to join the Discord and talk with fellow fans. I remember one fan telling, like, hey, man, like, it was one of those things where it kind of felt like an ad was unfurling in real time where someone was like, hey, I'm a fan of yours, and there's not a lot of hip-hop fans in my area. Where can I go? Like, do you have a Discord where I can talk to fellow fans? And I was just like, yes, I do.
Funny you should mention it.
Apparently a lot of people don't know that, so I do try to be better about, like, just bringing up the Patreon perks and stuff that I have, you know what I mean? Just be like, hey, like, please support us, because, like, I am trying to give you guys back shit, you know what I mean? Like, trying to give you something for the support, you know? So, yeah, I have the Discord that you can join. They listen to music sporadic. Like, I'll just, like, I'm not, like, active. I'll say something every now and then when I have something funny to say. But, like, I just kind of, it's, like, my own personal, Reddit where I get to see my fans say, like, oh, look what the conversation they're having today. And and also, like, pretty well moderated because, like, they're all cool dudes. It's the good side of Reddit. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, oh, okay, cool. Everything's cool here, you know? That, and of course you get to see the Rap Critic episodes early. The Review Anew other Patreon is where you get to see the Review Anew episodes. You get to see exclusive episodes that aren't available publicly. So definitely get with that. Act like you want it. And then my Twitch streams, of course. I'll be doing those. Follow me on the social medias for whenever for updates on when I'm doing them, because I usually put out a pretty cool looking picture with. Whatever I'm doing. I try to, catch your attention on these algorithms, Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's what's going on my end. That's what's going on my end.
And I wanted to shout out too, because I noticed that when we retweeted about our show being featured on the Czarface MF Doom album, that my Twitter saw a small uptick in followers. So if you're new here, and you're not subscribed to the YouTube channel, if you're not listening to us on the YouTube channel, go ahead, take a second, subscribe to the page, because not only do we upload the podcast here, but we also upload our own original series, Riff Comms and Riff Break, that uploads every Friday afternoon with new episodes, reviewing either television's worst sitcoms or some of the worst, or maybe even some of the best commercials. It's just happenstance of what shows up. We'll riff on it as it comes down the pike, and it's just a random grab bag of nostalgia and cringe. It's like MST3K, but not scripted and a lot gayer. So that's my elevator pitch for Riff Break. And until next time, for Going Off, I'm Muse.
And well, I'm RC. I got all the fly juice. And Muse is at the party on the 40 deuce. It doesn't matter what other show that you heard last. Going Off Pod is the biggest cast. Oh, 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 oh.